Chapter 28, Section 4, continued. As the U.S. and the USSR battled, an arms race is going to intensify. Each side was looking for that more powerful weapon. And in 1950, U.S. scientists began working on a hydrogen bomb, an H bomb, supposed to be 1,000 times stronger than the bombs we dropped on Hiroshima or Nagasaki. In 1952, you have the first test of an H bomb. We tested it, you can see in the top left picture there, we tested it at the Ulgi Island there, deserted island out in the middle of the Pacific. We completely vaporized the island, as you can see in the bottom right picture. But the island's gone. Very soon after we test our H-bomb, the Soviets tested their own H-bomb. Americans begin to look for comfort for their anxiety about a nuclear war. And people like Billy Graham are going to warn of the dangers of nuclear war, and he urged people to turn to God. And church membership in the 40s, 50s or so, it's going to grow. One of the ways you can see the measurement of church membership is by church building. Okay, the construction of religious institutions. 1946, $76 million of construction. A decade later, you're starting to get close to $1 billion. You see Congress add one nation under God to the Pledge of Allegiance. If you hear any recordings of kids giving the Pledge of Allegiance before this time period, it sounds odd because it goes straight from "and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible." It sounds like they're missing a part because that wasn't until the 50s that was added. The money has "In God We Trust" added to it. Meanwhile, the official policy of the Soviet Union was atheism. The United States government tried to calm people's fears. You had the Federal Civil Defense Administration to try to educate people on what to do in the case of an attack. And they'd have pamphlets and films and TV things and magazines. In schools, they had duck and cover, trying to help people on what to do in case of a nuclear attack. Radioactive fallout becomes a realized threat because with all of this testing by us and the Soviets, tons of radioactive materials being sent up into the atmosphere. And what goes up, it's coming down somewhere. And people began to realize how far-reaching its effects were after a test on a deserted island in the Pacific, and you had some fishermen 85 miles away from the test get radiation sickness. People started to look for ways to be safe. And you saw bomb shelters begin to being sold all over the place. And these were these concrete and steel, igloos, kind of constructed underground there. And inside of it, you would have the supplies you needed to survive a blast or nuclear fallout. 1957, Congress is going to hold hearings about fallout. And amazingly enough, some scientists actually said it was completely safe. But most scientists said it was a danger, not only to humans, but to the environment as well. Committee for a Sane Nuclear Policy is formed, urging negotiations with the Soviet Union to end all this testing. people in the U.S. begin to worry that we're starting to fall behind um, the Soviet Union. People start worrying that we're falling behind the Soviet Union. In October of 57, the Soviets are going to launch Sputnik. Sputnik was the first artificial satellite. It weighed about 200 pounds, and the Soviets were able to take Sputnik and put it into orbit. We had been working on an artificial satellite as well. It was 3.5 pounds, and we hadn't been able to successfully accomplish this yet. So people start worrying that we are falling behind technologically. A month later, the Soviets launch Sputnik 2. It's a 1,000-pound satellite carrying a dog and had a life support system in it. And they were able to keep the dog alive for a few days at least. In January of 58, we finally launch Explorer 1. The space race is now on. Ike is going to create the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, more commonly known as NASA, to promote space technology. Congress passes the National Defense Education Act to provide money to improve education in areas like science, math, and foreign languages.